So yesterday I finished washing the outside of this car. I still need to work on the paint a little bit. There is artillery fungus all over this thing, and clay was not enough to take that off. So I've gone through a couple different steps, and I'm trying to use tree sap remover to see if that'll take it off, but it's a slow process. And I'm afraid that once I get to the polishing step, polishing will not be enough to remove those spots. So I'm trying to address them now. So in addition to getting the artillery fungus, I do need to work on the wheels and get those dialed in. So that is going to be a step that I work on here in a little bit. But my main focus is going to be this artillery fungus, which you can see all over the hood on this vehicle. This, I was able to get most of the fungus itself removed, but the anchor points, which are these dark marks, are what it was left over from that process. This vehicle does have some rock chips, so a couple here, which are starting to rust. I'm gonna do what I can with those, but I've already used iron remover and tried to get those cleaned up. Once I address the artillery fungus, the panels and the trim on this vehicle is starting to fade a little bit, so I'm gonna use solution finish to restore all of that and get it back to good condition. And then once I have that, I'll work on the interior and get that dialed in before I start any polishing tonight. All right, so I've gone through a couple different options, trying to figure out what's working best on these anchor spots from the artillery fungus. I tried tree sap remover, I tried glass cleaner, panel prep. The only thing that I found that works fairly well is goof off, some kind of solvent-based dissolver, and that seems to be taking it off fairly quickly. The downside to that is this doesn't provide the same level of lubrication that some of those other products will. So you do run the risk of marring the paint when you're doing this. I am planning on doing a correction afterwards, so I'm not super concerned about marring up those spots where this resides. I'm gonna polish it out and get those cleaned up anyways. But this is probably the most effective way to remove these that I've found so far. on the hood, all the artillery fungus was removed. I ended up using a razor blade to take the head off of the spores and then using goof off to remove the remaining stain that was left behind from the anchor. So going over the paint, as we can see here, it's in decent shape. The razor blade actually did not introduce any additional scratching or anything. So I'm gonna go over this with the DIY red jeweling pad to see what kind of correction I can get with that. If that's not enough, then I may switch it up and do the gold standard pad on the DA, but I wanna see what I can get with the red jeweling pad first. All right, so down here we have the original state of the paint. As you can see, there's some swirl marks. And if I come up over here to the area that I just polished, it's not perfect. All right, so I'm gonna change up my approach. I'm gonna go with the DA and the yellow foam pad. I think that'll give me a little bit more correction, and on this white paint, it'll finish out very well. So I'm gonna go with that. The jeweling pad worked well, but it didn't give me the correction that I wanted. It did clean up the paint a little bit, but I think I can get a little bit more for the same amount of time that I'm gonna invest on this vehicle. So I'm gonna switch up my approach, do that, and then that'll be my approach for the rest of the vehicle. So I tried a couple test spots. I did just the rotary up here. I did just the DA with the yellow foam pad. And then I ended up doing a 2-stage on the corner there. And I think that's what I'm gonna end up going with. It's quicker to do the 2-step because I can get more cut using the foam wool pad and then switch over to the rotary and finish it out. So I'm gonna go with that approach and do that around the vehicle. I think that process is gonna be just as fast as just doing either just the rotary or just the DA. So I'm gonna do that, and it's gonna turn into a 2-step, but I think that's gonna get me the results that I want, especially for this customer. I coached with him this past year, and I wanna make sure that they're taken care of. So even if it goes above and beyond, that's okay with me. So I don't know if I'm gonna do anything with these headlights. I'm gonna try to do the 2-step correction just the same way that I'm doing it on the paint to these and see what I can get for correction. They are pretty hazy. And I want to try to address that as much as I can without doing any wet sanding before doing any kind of coating. So I'm going to do that. The trim, I have to do solution finish. That'll probably be tomorrow. So my plan for tonight is to finish doing the polish. The interior is done. I steam cleaned the seats. I wiped down all the panels, got all the dust out of it, and shampooed the carpets. I do have to do a final vac and get that tidied up and then do the windows on the interior, but the inside as far as cleaning goes is done. And then after that, I have the odds and ends. Tomorrow will be panel prep and coating, and then just the final touch-up points, like doing the tires. This back wheel, I need to figure out what I want to do here. There is some overspray. They had some damage fixed on the back of the vehicle. When that was resprayed, there was some overspray, so you can hear it here. So I gotta figure out what I want to do with that. I don't have a clay bar like I thought I did, so I don't have something that can go after that. I may pick one up tomorrow while I'm out. solution finish is done, I'm gonna go through and panel prep everything, all the paints. As you can see with solution finish, it does get a little streaky, so if you get some on the paint, you're going to want to clean that off. It wipes off very easily, but you want to wait to do the panel prep until that is off or until you're done with that.